Something is happening right now inside the corridors of American financial power, and if you are holding XRP, you need to hear every single word of what I am about to tell you. Because in the last 48 hours, a door just opened. A door that Ripple has been waiting years to walk through. And behind that door is a system that moves $5 to $7 trillion every single day. Stay right here, because at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a supply number that will completely change how you see XRP's next move. And once you understand it, you will never look at this asset the same way again. President Trump just signed 2 executive orders, and buried inside the legal language of those orders is something that could permanently alter the financial infrastructure of the United States, something that puts Ripple and XRP directly at the center of it all. But here's the thing nobody is asking. Why now? Why these orders? Why this moment? That answer is more important than the orders themselves, and I will get there. But first, Ripple has been operating inside a cage built by the existing rules of American banking. When Ripple wants to settle a cross-border payment, it cannot go directly to the Federal Reserve. It has to route through correspondent banks. Third-party institutions that sit in the middle, charge their fees, add their delays, and carry their own risk. Ripple has been building an empire of payment rails, while being forced to use someone else's plumbing to reach the most important financial system on Earth. That ends now. Because the first executive order directs the Federal Reserve to evaluate giving non-bank financial firms and crypto companies direct access to its wholesale payment systems. Direct. No middlemen, no correspondent banks, straight to the source. And if you think that does not matter, consider this. Fedwire alone, just one of the Federal Reserve's payment systems, processed $4.5 trillion per single day last year alone. One system, one day. 4.5 trillion. Now multiply that across all of the Fed's systems, and you reach $5 to $7 trillion moving every 24 hours. That is the plumbing of American finance, and Ripple just got handed a potential key to plug directly into it. But here's what you do not know yet. Ripple already applied for a Federal Reserve master account. Brad Garlinghouse confirmed it himself at XRP Las Vegas. That application has been sitting there for months, with no deadline, no process, no accountability. The Fed was not required to respond. The application could have sat there indefinitely. Could you imagine building the most advanced payment infrastructure on the planet and having your application collect dust on a bureaucrat's desk? That was Ripple's reality, until 48 hours ago. Because the second executive order changed everything. It now directs the Fed to establish transparent application procedures for digital asset firms seeking payment access, and to respond to those applications within 90 days. 90 days. The White House stated publicly, the current rules favor incumbents at the expense of innovators. Say those words slowly. The highest office in the United States just declared publicly that the old system is rigged in favor of the big banks, and that it is time to change. If you just heard that and you are not paying attention, I do not know what else to tell you. Because the structural shift that just happened is enormous, and the price has not even moved yet, which means the opportunity window is still open. But it will not stay open forever. Now here is where everything shifts, because just when you think you understand what this executive order means, there is a second story happening simultaneously, one that most analysts are completely ignoring. And when you combine it with the Federal Reserve access story, the picture that emerges is almost too big to believe. Ripple Prime just integrated with EDX markets, and if you do not know what EDX is, stop everything and listen carefully right now. EDX Markets is backed by Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Citadel Securities, Goldman Sachs, and former executives from the CME Group. Read those names again. Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Goldman Sachs. Together, these institutions manage $11.5 trillion in assets. They serve 77 million active broker accounts. EDX is not a crypto startup. EDX is Wall Street, and Wall Street just connected directly to Ripple Prime. One analyst described what happens when EDX's clearinghouse fully activates. It will be like opening a 16-lane highway for semi-trucks full of cash. The impact will be felt across the entire cryptosphere. And here's the most extraordinary part. The connection is basically a flip of the switch. The infrastructure is already built, already live, already waiting. And if that alone does not make you lean forward in your seat, remember this. The week before EDX, it was the DTCC announcement. The week before that, JP Morgan collaboration reports. Every single week, another switch gets flipped. another institution locks in, and every single one of those connections flows back to one asset. We will get to that in a moment. But first, there is a supply story unfolding in real time that most people are completely blind to. In just 6 months, 1.4 billion XRP has been locked into ETF custody. 6 months, 1.4 billion XRP absorbed, removed from liquid circulation, gone from the open market. Right now, the best on-chain analytics suggest only 1.5 to 1.7 billion XRP is sitting on centralized exchanges available to buy. Think about the math there. In 6 months, ETF custody absorbed nearly as much XRP as what remains available on all exchanges combined. And Japan and South Korea have not approved their XRP ETFs yet. Let that land for a moment. The supply shock we have already witnessed happened without two of the world's largest crypto markets even entering the picture. When Japan and South Korea flip their ETF switches, and they will, the scarcity dynamic that follows will be unlike anything this market has ever experienced. The surface fact is 1.4 billion XRP in ETF custody, but the iceberg underneath that fact is a supply wall building in real time that most retail investors cannot even see yet. By the time they see it, the price will have already moved. And the window to act before that happens is exactly the window you are sitting in right now. But wait, because just when you think you have the full picture, there is one more layer. And this one comes from an institution that most people never associate with crypto, the International Monetary Fund. A recent IMF report described a critical structural problem in global liquidity, the need for a neutral bridge asset that can sit invisibly between two currencies or assets with no natural trading pair, executing a swap instantly without requiring a specific counterparty on the other side. The IMF described the problem in academic language, but what they were describing is exactly what XRP was built to solve. The swap is invisible to the trader. They send a treasury bill in. They receive a euro stablecoin out. But in the middle, silent and unseen, XRP executed that entire settlement in seconds. RLUSD cannot do that. No issued stable asset can do that, because those assets represent claims on something else. XRP represents nothing and everything. Pure neutral liquidity, pure settlement. The IMF just accidentally wrote the investment thesis for XRP in an official report, without realizing it. And now, everything I have told you in the last 10 minutes comes down to one single truth. Brad Garlinghouse said it with complete clarity. XRP is the North Star for Ripple. Not RLUSD, not custody, not payments. XRP. Ripple payments, Ripple Prime, Ripple Treasury, Ripple Custody, all of it. Every single product, every single partnership, every single regulatory battle is designed with one purpose: drive utility, drive trust, drive liquidity around XRP and the XRP ledger. XRP is at the heartbeat of everything. So when you hear about direct Federal Reserve access, that is XRP settlement becoming cheaper and faster. When you hear about EDX markets integration, that is $11.5 trillion in Wall Street firepower flowing through infrastructure that runs on XRP. When you hear about 1.4 billion XRP locked in ETF custody, that is institutional demand, absorbing supply before the next wave even arrives. Every piece of news, every executive order, every partnership, every regulatory win, they all have one address, and that address is XRP. Now let us talk about where price goes from here, because this is the part people get wrong. XRP is currently consolidating inside a triangle formation. A near-term dip towards support around $1.32 to $1.33 is possible. That is not weakness. That is accumulation. That is the market loading before a move. XRP has a very specific pattern. It moves sideways. It tests patience. It bores people to the edge of selling. It makes holders question everything. And then, when the fewest number of people are watching, when the most people have walked away, it moves. Hard, fast, without warning. The XRP to Bitcoin ratio is grinding in Bitcoin's favor right now, which is historically exactly the setup that precedes a major XRP explosion in dollar terms. Bitcoin needs to hold above $100,000 for the next leg to ignite. When that happens, combined with direct Fed access, EDX live clearing, Japan and South Korea ETF approvals, and Ripple's full institutional infrastructure locked in, the demand curve that emerges points in only one direction. Here is the complete picture fully assembled. Trump signs executive orders creating a direct pathway to Federal Reserve access for crypto firms. Ripple has already applied. The 90-day response clock is now running. Kraken already has a limited-purpose master account proving the precedent exists. Simultaneously, Ripple Prime connects to $11.5 trillion in Wall Street firepower through EDX. 1.4 billion XRP disappears into ETF custody in 6 months, while Japan and South Korea have not even started. The IMF unknowingly validates XRP as the neutral bridge asset the global financial system actually needs. And Brad Garlinghouse confirms on record that XRP is the heartbeat of every single thing Ripple builds. This is not a story about tomorrow's candle. This is a story about infrastructure being locked in, layer by layer, switch by switch. While most of the world is still debating whether crypto is legitimate, the demand curve just got steeper. The supply is contracting. The regulatory doors are swinging open. The institutions are already inside. The only question that remains is whether you will be positioned before the switch gets fully flipped, or standing on the outside watching it happen to someone else. The smart money is already moving quietly. Patience is the name of the game, but only for those who are already holding the cards.